Welcome to the Female Stoic Podcast. My name is Stephanie Poppins, and I am an advocate for literary empowerment. That means I believe in the empowerment of women through the examples set by Stoic authors of the past. The likes of the Bronte sisters, Jane Austen, and L.M. Montgomery, to name but a few. In each weekly episode, I will be delivering Stoic advice with the help of these women and others from the Bluestocking group. This advice is designed to both inspire and empower you on the journey to becoming the best version of yourself you can possibly be. By referring to the struggles of powerful women from the past and relating these to our struggles as women today, we can gain a further understanding and appreciation for our role as women in the 21st century. And if you like what you hear, you might consider looking me up on my socials, where I post empowering videos every day. Or you may like my classic audiobooks and original stories available on my website. Happy listening. Today I have my journal, and in this journal I'm just going to read a page from this journal because this is something I do religiously, and I promote the idea that if we all take time, whether it be to make notes on a phone or just check in with ourselves every morning, I promote the value of that. And this journal entry says, the key is to find your direction. Listen to the stories, immerse yourselves in the words of women wiser than you, and connect with ideas and characters to discover who you really are and what you want from life. And the quote I have, because I always use a quote to inspire me, is from Jane Austen in Pride and Prejudice. The distance is nothing when one has motive. And I think that's a really good quote, because basically she's saying there, once you know where you're going, it's easier to keep moving forward. And this is where I'm going, these lives, and the idea of the connection between the literary masters and us today, and the lessons we can learn from that. It's like having loads of female relatives that can help you out in difficult times, give you advice. And there is an investment with that. And that's where the Stoicism comes in, the investment that we make as practicing Stoics, where we are seeking the attainment of our higher selves, seeking to improve our outcomes as a result of that. So trying to align with our life's purpose, which is a huge endeavour, and it's a lifelong endeavour, and it's a commitment every day. And that's why I read you this page from my journal, because that's the commitment I make every day. I start with that, and I promote that. I actively promote the use of journaling. Today's live is about the Stoic Higher Self. So our endeavour to reach our higher selves, to commit to practicing every day the steps we need to take to acknowledge our higher self. The higher self is something, the Stoic higher self is something which is part of us. It's not a separate entity. It's integral to who we are. What we're doing is seeking to tap in to that original being, that original entity that we were born to. So when we were children, the ideas, the morals, the virtues, the hope, the excitement that we experienced, and those dreams represent our higher self. And over time, external influences mould us into something else. And what we're seeking to do is get back to that place and protect that person, that higher self. Hold her within our citadel, our inner citadel, and or him, and do what we have to every day to honour that higher self. So that's what our live is about today. And I have a question, as I always have. We are going to be referring to Middlemarch today by George Eliot. And George Eliot, as we know, was a woman, a female author of the Victorian period, and Middlemarch was her magnum opus, so her defining moment. It's a novel we can learn very much from because it's a societal account and an honest societal account of the expectations of both men and women of that time. And I start the lives with a question. And the question is something that I've either received in my DMs, through a social media app, or been emailed. And this question is from Amy from Leeds. And she says, how do I know what my higher self is? I'm a perfectionist in everything I do. I've always tried to make the right choices, but I still get the feeling something is missing. Why can't I find peace in the knowledge of who my higher self is? So I'm going to start by looking at what the higher self is and relating that to Stoic philosophy. And what I would say is, Amy here says she's a perfectionist. It's not about perfectionism. It's about the attainment of our morals and values and the things we feel secure about. So let's just go into this in a bit more depth. In Stoic philosophy, the higher self represents the virtuous part of ourselves that strives for wisdom and excellence. We understand it's an integral part of ourselves, and we, by honouring our higher self, are living in accordance with reason, making choices that align with our virtue, rather than as reactions to external influences or impulses. We're directing our energy towards improving our own actions and character, rather than worrying about things that are happening outside of our circle of control. And as we know, we have the dichotomy of control, and it's everything within that circle that we have control over. Everything else we don't. So this is the wisest, most compassionate part of our being. As I said before, it's the representation of who we were when we were young, before we were moulded by external influence. It's the source of our intuition, creativity, and unconditional love. And our higher self is guiding us towards our true potential. So it's existing at a higher frequency, and it's our job to tap into that, and that's what we're trying to do. And we tap into that by using references from things that we have learned. knowledge we have acquired. And part of that knowledge is through literature, through people who have walked the path before us and have so much to teach us. Okay, so instead of focusing on the ego, our desires, our worldly attachments, the higher self is transcending that. And it's operating from a place of wisdom and love. So if we go back to Amy, who wants to know why she feels something's missing, even though she's a perfectionist, she's always trying to do the right thing. We have to ask ourselves, well, if something is familiar and it's something we do a lot of, it doesn't necessarily mean it's right. If something is perfect, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. The problem with perfectionism versus high standards. So our higher self is promoting high standards. Perfectionism is a fear of doing something wrong. It's trying to control everything. So even though Amy is saying, I'm a perfectionist in everything I do, she's trying to control the outcomes. She's trying to control all the external forces so that everything's perfect. But we mustn't confuse perfectionism with high standards. They're not the same thing. So even though she seems to be doing the right thing on the surface, she's a perfectionist on the surface. Attaining her higher self involves introspection. It involves working at our inner self every day. It's not the external things. I've got everything in place. My house is tidy. I have the routine. Everything's organised. Everything's perfect. Why do I feel something's missing? You feel something's missing because it's the higher self, the high standards within we are seeking to work on, not outside of ourselves. And with that, we gain an understanding of ourselves and then realise what we should be allowing into our life according to our high standards and what we should reject from our life. High standards do not make you rigid. It's not like perfectionism. It's about having principles and being grounded in those and being really sure of who you are. And understanding things are changeable all the time and you can't control those. But what you can control is your response to those. And that doesn't involve controlling things so that they stay in place. It involves mastering your inner security, if you like, and who you are, your knowledge of who you are, and your limitations, your boundaries, what you're willing to accept and what you're not. So when you attain these higher standards and you say, from today I will no longer accept X, Y, and Z, my life is going to reflect what I accept. You are stepping into a life with dignity. But those things don't have to be perfect. You can have a real alignment with your higher self. And yet there can be areas, little chaotic areas within your home, for example. A little clutter corner that you're quite happy with, because that represents something that is a work in progress, that is not quite finished. Might be an art corner, that there's something going on there that you've been working on and you don't want to pack it all away. That's not perfectionism, is it? That's an understanding something's being worked on there and I'm not finished with it yet. It doesn't need to be perfect yet. And I'm really comfortable that I'm aligned with my higher self. So I don't need for that to be finished yet. It's a different mood, it's a different vibe. And that is why Amy is feeling a little bit lost, because Everything external to her seems to be in place and perfect, and yet she's not being introspective. She's not looking inward and thinking, right, well, who am I? What am I all about? That comes from gaining knowledge, keeping your eyes open to situations around you, learning lessons from the world and life, and understanding who you are and aligning with that person. George Eliot said, "It is never too late to be what you might have been." This quote really rings true for me, because there are things we know, but we forget to let them fully emerge. There are lessons we've learned, but we've overlooked them in the rush to do something else. And that's why every day we need to check in and say, what am I willing to accept? Who am I as a person? What are these relationships I have around me? What does my environment look like? What do I do with my time? All of these questions reaffirm who we are. And it's good to ask ourselves these and just check in with that every now and then. We need to align with this true voice. Who we were before the world moulded us into who we have become. And it's never too late to get back to that person. And there may well be elements of our higher selves we practice every day, or we tap into or connect with, but it's an ongoing process because external forces are so powerful. In order to maintain our alignment with our higher self, we have to check out every day and check into that person, open the doors to our inner citadel and say, right, what's going on? I've kind of forgotten who I was amongst all that. That's life-affirming stuff, and it's, I would suggest, survival. In Middlemarch, this Magnum Opus, this huge endeavour of hers, we see one of her main characters, Dorothea Brooke. She's a 19-year-old orphan. She lives with her younger sister Celia as a ward of her uncle, Mr. Brooke. An especially pious young woman, so she always wants to do everything perfectly. And really hard-working and a great character. But she's, as with this question we're focused on today, is a little bit of a perfectionist and is a little bit all strapped in close. Her hobby involves the renovation of buildings belonging to the tenant farmers of her uncle, although her uncle discourages her, of course, because this is Victorian England and why would a young lady be doing that? And because of all these questions she has, as a pious young woman, we see her grappling with self-awareness, this sense of duty, the impact of external forces upon her life, all of those things that I've just been talking about, this conflict there is in her life between individual desire and societal duty. As women, this is a conflict we still experience today. Though in a somewhat different capacity, we still have those expectations upon us as women, as mothers, as sisters, as wives, as daughters, to fulfill certain roles. And this happens from the day we're born. And it's still happening. And there is still that conflict between what we want to achieve and what the expectations upon us and what we feel is right to do, and all of those conflicting external forces. And this societal account of the Victorian age is really highlighting the struggle between women's roles and this strong desire for intellectual and spiritual fulfillment, especially with the protagonist. So Dorothea Brooke is a bright young lady, and she needs to exercise that intellect. And what happens is she marries somebody who does not provide the stimulation or personal growth that she craves. And of course, she's married now, so she has the conflict between being a dutiful wife and remaining true to her higher self and trying to nurture that intellectual craving that she has. So that's why this is so relevant for this theme. She has an attraction as well to another man, and this complicates her situation. She marries somebody who's older and gives her security, but she has an attraction. And this is the great thing about George Eliot's characters. They're flawed, they're complicated, and they illustrate the human plight so well, because none of us are travelling on a straight path. There are always bends, twists, and sometimes we are crossing very boggy terrain. It's the only way I can put it. So she's got this attraction to this younger guy, but it's not about the youth so much as he has this intellectual curiosity, unconventional nature. And Elliot here is using these characters to explore this broader theme of individual struggle within a society that often prioritises convention over personal fulfilment. And these are very much the same struggles we still have today, especially as women, because financially speaking, it's not for the majority of people, it's not financially possible to exist on one income if you are a couple and you're bringing up children. So there's an expectation that the woman, the wife, the female partner will go out to work and also contribute to the income, and with that still continue to have the responsibility of the child rearing and a significant proportion, if not all in many cases, of the chores around the home and running the home. So what we're saying here is, yes, there's a struggle. We are trying to attain our higher selves and balance that with the external forces that we have no control over. We must provide to a degree, we must contribute financially, and we must navigate relationships, familial, platonic, romantic, whilst still keeping in view, checking in with every day this higher self, and realising that I still have my goals, my virtues, and my things that I'm holding on to. And I still want to honour those. So it's a balance. It's a complicated balance. And this is what George Eliot is depicting. That confusion, that frustration, that sheer sorrow in having to constantly negotiate and let parts of ourselves drop away, and whilst we're hoping and praying, especially during motherhood, while we're hoping and praying they're still there and we can check back in with them at a later stage. So there's an interplay of individual differences, communication challenges, and evolving expectations. And staying true to our higher selves, it's important we understand that there are many chapters in our life. And when we are honouring our higher self, we need the people around us to be honouring that with us. We need to hold ourselves to account, and in return they will respect us. But we need to also understand that in each chapter there will be different expectations from each other, because it's a constant process of negotiation. So, for example, with Dorothea Brooke, this female protagonist, this young girl, there's an expectation of her when she enters a marriage. The expectations are different once she becomes a mother, for example. The expectations are different once she gets older and the relationship changes once again. And all that time, what we're saying as Stoics is we still have to be mindful of our higher self. And we have to set those boundaries and those reminders that I am still the same person. I still need to tap into, for my own good, those virtues. And I also need the people around me, be it someone I've been with as a long-term partner, be it family members or children. I still need them to remember who I am, and I need to reinforce that. And checking in with ourselves every day helps us be mindful of that, so that then we can reinforce that. Because if we don't know who we are, it's very difficult to remind other people of that. So there are different chapters. We're renegotiating, we're constantly setting boundaries, and the boundaries are changing according to each chapter. We are re-establishing our roles continually. And there will be difficult moral choices as parents age, as children grow up. There will be different dynamics, and it's a constant juggling of those. And the only thing that should remain constant is you tapping into your higher self. You understanding that it's necessary to self-reflect, to grow, to constantly learn. So this idea of perfectionism, everything's perfect and that's it now. I've got it all right. Now what am I missing now? It's never completely perfect. It's never completely perfect. It's always changing. But your higher self is not changing. It's growing, it's learning, but it's not changing. Your morals, values, virtues remain the same. In the different chapters of Dorothea's life, she makes different decisions, and critics of Middlemarch have mixed views about this. So at times she's pious, at times she's focused on perfectionism, yet over the course of the novel she learns tolerance and a greater understanding of herself. This youthful idealism, everything's got to be perfect, becomes tempered with realism. She's always remaining true to her higher self, but she understands that this pursuit of her intellectual goals doesn't necessarily mean she has to be the one running for Parliament. She's not saying, I have to give up everything in pursuit of intellect and just let all the other opportunities and roles in my life slide to the side because all I'm focused on is this one pursuit. Not everybody is going to be running for Parliament. It doesn't mean they can't tap into their intellectual self, they can't nurture that, feed that with the people around them, with the things they expose themselves to. What are we listening to? What are we reading? What do we allow ourselves to come into contact with every day? All of these are choices. And in Dorothea's life, in the novel Middlemarch, she makes different choices, but always has a clear understanding of who she is. And those choices, as the novel goes on, reflect that. And eventually it comes full circle and she can tap into that side of herself. It is enough for her to be married, but she still knows that it's also important for her to be exposed to different avenues of expression, to learn, to develop herself intellectually. And that's not a compromise, because she needs to be fulfilled in a myriad of ways. And that's what we're saying. It's not about perfecting any one area. There are going to be many different areas to your life. But as long as you're really clear about who you are, you have really clear boundaries and a really clear sense of, this is what I'm willing to accept. This is what I expose myself to. This is who I am. The environment around you will fall into alignment with that, which is what happened to Dorothea. This is why she's such a great character to follow. She keeps her eyes open. She learns the lessons. She's remaining true to the protection of her higher self. Some things she doesn't like, but she maintains who she is throughout. And I think that's why this novel encapsulates the idea of the higher self so well. And it was the same for George Eliot. She was married, and as many of the Stoics of the time, female Stoics, were, and they had a strong desire to develop themselves beyond the traditional wifely role, and they did so and remained married and committed to their relationship. So it doesn't have to be one or the other, and it doesn't have to be any one thing is perfect. What it is important for us to do is always tap into that sense of self. And we do this by learning the lessons in the 21st century, by learning the lessons taught to us from women in history. Every single one of these novels is a lesson. And that's why I'm here. To bring it all together and hopefully make it make sense. Hey, Stephanie here. Thank you for listening to the Female Stoic Podcast. It is an honour, and I just want to say I really appreciate you being here. It's amazing the power of women in literature and the Stoic messages they have to share. Please, if you can, return the favour by spreading their words and sharing this podcast far and wide, so more of us can benefit from their wisdom. And don't forget to leave a review if you like what you heard. See you next time.